Well, hello there. Good morning and welcome to my little arty corner of the internet. It is Thursday the 6th of January 2022, and after a lovely sunny day, mostly yesterday and the day before, it's grey and grim here again in South Wales and in the United Kingdom, which is fine. It's a bit milder. It was really quite chilly yesterday, but I did get out for a walk and I had some sunshine on my walk, and as I turned around at the end, because I go to, and this will sound morbid, but it's not, I go to a local cemetery. It's quite large, and if I do a complete circuit, I know I've walked a mile. Oh, fair enough, you know, if I zigzag, even more than. So I walk from one end to the other and then come back, and as I walk to the one end from where I started, and I turned round, the skies were black. I was stood in sunshine, and where I was heading to, the skies were black. And I thought, right, we're going to get back to the car because I don't want to be caught in that downpour. And I got back to the car and the first raindrops appeared as I got in, and then the heavens opened. So that was a good bit of timing. But it was a much needed walk and time out. I'm not quite sure what the weather's going to do today. My computer is telling me, the alert on my bar at the bottom says rain and snow. Well, I can tell you now, if it's going to be snowing, I ain't going anywhere. So anyway, so perfect day to stay in and do art, which is what I do plan to do anyway. So here is yesterday's page for the Fragment of Your Imagination challenge. I did Zach, basically because I got all out of sync early on with the days early on, and I just did what I felt like. But today I'm actually going to get back in sync, so I'll be doing today's Zentangle. So I showed how I drew these yesterday and went through some of my thought processes. I've got another couple of sheets somewhere, but I thought I'd show you this just to show the difference that colour makes in helping to bring out different areas. And yes, there's some gold shine on there, and yeah, some of them need me to go over the black lines with ink, which I will do at some point perhaps, but just that hint of gold makes it just that little bit more special. But I used what did I use for these? Graphitint pencils, just to go back for a bit of a change and use something familiar. So today's fragment is one from the Zentangle Primer book, Primer, if you're not in Britain, I'm guessing. And it's D23, and it's a circular one, which is interesting. This looks like an old-fashioned camera shutter lens, actually, which my digital camera would have because it's an SLR, and so it has a shutter lens like that. But it could look like fancily curled pastries or dumplings of some kind as well, which is quite cute. So this one is going to be interesting because my mind was ticking as I put the original one down. So I'll do about half a page perhaps with you, because my videos are getting very long, and I know some of you love that, but I also know others might appreciate a bit of brevity. And my nib is a bit, wondering if I've actually got ink. No, there's no ink in there, I've just got ink on here. So I'm going to stick with circles for a while. And the most obvious thing to do is to offset that central orb. And I like these that are filled in with black with that little highlight. And then these lines just are curves, and they curve around. And I'm going to try to keep the distance between them on the bounding line, that's you know, the outside line, as equidistant as I can, because my mind was ticking about something else. So by setting it off, it gives a slightly different feel. It's the first simple kind of variation. I suppose another variation, I am going to set it off, offset it again, is to put these really close. And these lines come off like they would do in Wells, so you're making the same kind of letter or number. Each time. Now, I'm not rotating my paper because I'm comfortable drawing them all from the same spot, keeping my paper close still. So that's actually nice. It gives it a denser feel. And in some ways helps with a feeling that this is either dipping down or standing out. We pop this back towards the centre a moment, because I am going to, didn't leave enough of a gap there. I'm having trouble coming round this morning, and I say morning loosely. It is morning, but it is 10:30, and I just couldn't fully, I'm still not fully awake yet. And I don't know what, I've got an inkling I know what that's about, but I'm not entirely sure. So my hand-eye coordination isn't brilliant, especially as I've just put some eye drops in because my eyes are all a bit sandy and crusty inside. I've got something called blepharitis, and some days my eyes are okay, other days they need some lubrication because they dry out and whatever. So it's nothing serious. It's just something that I can do something with, so that's not helping. So that's quite nice where you aura the lines individually. Again, I'm going to do that. This time I'm going to pop an aura around that one, because it will make a difference to how this looks. Just simple things like that can make such a big difference in some ways. So that's quite nice. That really is like there's an eye staring out at you. I've really got a thing about eyes at the moment, haven't I? Seems to be. Okie dokes. So another simple variation is to give an aura all the way around, which I'll do on this one. And I will actually do on this one. Not drawing them wonderfully because I'm not trying not to rotate the paper because it's going to irritate me today. But what about changing? Let me have a look. Because if we only do 4 of these, then it's a well variation, isn't it? So I'm going to split these into halves. And this is a simplish way of getting equidistant things. And I'm going to start to fill half of them with, oh gosh, I missed. Oh, I've gone and done it. So 1, 2, there. What an idiot. Okay, we'll do it this way. I'll split these, one of these. There. Oh, that looks like a peppermint sweet, or candy, as they're also called in other countries. What is known as in America, and I guess other countries, as candies. In the UK we call them sweets. And in Welsh, the Welsh for sweet is loshin. Lossin. And in fact, there's I don't know if you can still get them. I would imagine so, but there are a very old brand of mints in Wales that are called Loshindant, which literally means sweet tooth. And they're brown and white humbugs almost. Well, they are humbugs, but they're Welsh, made in Wales, and they're called Loshindant. So there you are, a bit Welsh. It's a Lossin. I'm not sure if it's Lossin or Loshin. I think it's Lossin, L-O-S-I-N. And I should know because I'm learning Welsh and it's one of the ones there. But as sweets, I've always known the sweets as Loshindant. So that's how I was told, that's how you say it when I was little. So there we are. So yeah, it's sweet. So these look a bit like those swirly round, roundy sweets. Whereas Lush and Dance aren't round, they're rectangular shaped. Okay. If I stop talking, the ink dries on the nib. Okay, so let's do a huge circle in the middle as another variation. And we can also do a tiny one in the middle, and I will do that as a definite dot. And I'm going to space these out just a little bit more. So that's another variation. Go back to this one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off with a rather large gap, and then I'm going to gradually decrease the distance between them. And can you see I'm working from one side to the other, one side to the other. So I'm gradually closing the gap here until we've got a very small gap. So that's quite fun. That went through my mind. And I guess we could do that with Well or any of the others, like Zach yesterday, where you can gradually make those lines get closer and closer together. As the ink gets darker, it tends to give that feeling of distance or curving away from. And here it feels like they're all settling into this area. That seems to be where everything is being curled around into. Okay, what else could we do? Well, there's one of these in here. I wonder what would happen if I added two. The answer is I don't know. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to pop these around, and where they meet or overlap or whatever, you get something else. That's interesting. That is interesting to me. I'm not quite sure it's a good variation, but it is an interesting thing, because you've got an overlap here that you can enhance a bit, and there's an overlap here, because if you put the dark colours on, it feels like this other one is further down. Try this again. But this time I'm going to go round in one direction from that one and in the opposite direction here. And I will work my way round the outside edge. Mostly alternately. I can see that I can do a couple at a time here. Now this is where I have to make a decision. Is I can leave these, or I could just carry on and have them meet, which I'll do in this one. So they come together. But if I do another, let's have a look, let's have them go this way. So I am going to make them meet that side. So if I take this up to roughly the top where they're going to meet, and then work around the outside here, then I could decide that I'm going to weave them. And it ends up with something that looks a bit like betweed. That's more interesting. That appeals to me more than this version or this one. So I do like that one. So it's possible to put more than one of these orbs in there. I'm guessing you could do 3. I'm going to give it a go because I've said it, so therefore I will now try. Now I'm going to pop them here, and I'm going to keep them open so we can see what's going to happen. So I'm going to go this way, and these are going to go all in the same direction because my head is not able to think about how I could do one opposing two. Okay, this is where we start to get things starting to join in, I suppose, isn't it? Like that. So that's a different way. It would be the same, I suppose, if I was to, instead of using a circle in the middle, I used a triangle and just had these points all spiraling off here, and eventually get to a point where it will follow the line of the triangle. So that's possible as well, which also means instead of using a triangle, you could also probably use a square. And just have these shapes going until you get to one where it follows the line of the square. And I'm mostly making them come from the same point. So that would work as well. Reminds me of a Chinese coin. I think it is. Is it Chinese? There's probably a lot of the Far East where many countries in the Far East where you've got circular coins with a square hole in the middle. So that's quite fun. Should just pop that there. And as I'm thinking about this, as I used this idea of opposing lines over here, I wonder if we could make it happen with, well, I'm going to use a square to see, where we use perhaps start like that, where we have them joining, and then we spiral them out until they join again at the top. I don't know how this is going to work. I have no idea. But I sort of like have a mental image, kind of. The odd thing is my imagination isn't necessarily very visual. I do build mental images up, but they tend to be in words rather than pictures, which is a strange way of saying something. But when I read a book, those words can help me build some kind of a sense of what's being described. And if I'm familiar with something, I catch a glimpse, but it's not a photographic kind of image. It's just a knowing that that is what it is like. So, you know, I've often mentioned that my inner monologue isn't really in words. It's in symbols and metaphor, I suppose, things that are very ephemeral and aren't there. It's not even pictures. The thoughts, I'm unaware of them until I bring them into being through talking. Sometimes I get an idea for a drawing or for a pattern and it seems to be visual, but I'm not sure whether that's just because my mind is forcing me to take notice of it, or whether it is my imagination working that kind of way. It's a strange thing, I think, you know. But I do have an imagination. You describe something to me, I'll know what you're talking about, but I don't necessarily see it in my mind's eye. Although I'm not sure about that either. It's a funny old thing. Okay, so of course we can fill these sections with patterns. I'm going to go to my favourite Shaddock. and that gives some real interest. Simple one would be just to fill with lines. I like curved lines because they add volume, and if I fill them with black, I'm leaving a little highlights, and that increases that sense of dimension. Excuse me, Mo, I'm going to go and get some tissue. I had to fill this pen up today, and it filled a lot better, more fuller than the first time I did it, but I am getting an awful lot of ink coming out of the nib, and that may just be because I was drawing on empty, as it were. Okay. Is there anything else that I could do with this? Oh yes. Okay. Instead of using simple curved lines, let's use S shapes. And for this, I am going to have to turn my paper so I can follow the shape. I'm not very good at following these by using my imagination. Generally, I much prefer to turn my paper. I'm going to have trouble on this side because everything's so wet, this ink. This pen really is juicy. So something like that would change it. It's the same, but it's different. Instead of straight lines, I've used curvy lines. And for this one, I'm going to put some of these curved lines in, but I'm going to leave fairly big gaps between them because I want to come back and aura them with a bump. Now I could have put that bump in as I was drawing the line, but I didn't really trust myself. But this is an interesting way of doing it, a different way of adding an aura with a bump, because that adds a different feel. And I suppose if we really want to do something that is very different, is I'm going to do a Diva Dance version. Now I've got no way of knowing how this is going to turn out, but it's a tangle bash or pattern bash. Actually, that looks really nice, just partly done, and that is going to be my next variation, is a partly done pattern. What do you think? I think it does. I really like that. I'm going to leave that one because I like that, and I'm going to go on and do that on a different one. So just again, you could do it the other way. So, you know, with Diva Dance, you've got those bumps and you aura around them, so you add the little black bumps and then aura around them. And it changes everything. This actually reminds me of a nautilus shell. So you could look that up if you're not sure what a nautilus shell looks like, but it really does. I think I've thought that about Diva Dance from time to time, but this is a perfect way of sort of getting that feeling of a nautilus shell. Because I can't actually aura this anymore, so I may as well aura these lines. Yeah, I'm forgetting to put the bumps in before I add the line by coming off this first one. So it's constructed in the same way, but there's adaptations I make along the way. to complete the pattern. So that's interesting. I do like that one. And that one was done, this one was done by putting the first line in, and we auraed that one. This one was done by putting the first line in, but we auraed the outside of the curve. So those are the starting points for those. Let me do a complete one of these. I'll pop it here so we know where we are starting from, because I'm able to spot the difference as we go on, but sometimes I do like to make a note of where it's best, or how something is started, or where best it's started from and what direction to work in, because sometimes the deconstructions that people give, which work fine, but there's something and I go, but if I do this it makes more sense to me, and I think that's perfectly fine. And some I struggle with no matter what I do, until I see them created on a video, and then suddenly pennies drop and it makes sense, or I can see how it can make sense to me. Lots of bumps along this line because we're going to get some fairly long lines here until we join back up at the edge like this. I have a sneaky suspicion that this one may be best done as a partial fill for the circle, but it's still an interesting. You can tell I'm intrigued by this one because I'm spending a lot of time on it. I find it interesting and pleasing, and interesting to draw. It's forcing me to do things that I find difficult to do in Senna, is it? That's a pattern that vexes me constantly, and I don't know why I have such difficulty with it. See, I much prefer it with the space. That's a bit like a weird yin-yang actually, isn't it? So, to use a linear pattern, so Diva Dance as the fill for this is good fun. Now something else came to my mind here, didn't it? Oh yeah, it was the idea of these partially filling this, and what I would do is decide which area I want left blank or not blank, or how much of it I want blank or not. So with this one I've got quite a large area that I could leave blank, and with just two of them, perhaps put another one in on either side as auras, perhaps just to separate them. And then I can decide whether I want to fill this with pattern or this one. In this case, I'm just going to fill this in quite simply, I think. I'll put a well in. As I get it the wrong way around there, but it's fine. So that would, you could do something like that. It hasn't worked very well. I'm sure a better pattern be thought of going in there, but also was just splitting this in half. And again, we can aura that. I'm sure that's another fragment or a part of a tangle, but they overlap. It's how you develop them, I suppose. And it could be that we just aura that one half with the pattern, and that's quite nice as well. What about other shapes? Because I say I'm running out of ideas. The thing is that we've got ideas for embellishments or for variations, and it's then just a matter of what would fit in here. What do I feel like using today? Let's have a quick look at a square. And of course this pattern will fit into any shape, because after all that's the basis of it. So all we need to do is just all of these lines around. So that's well becoming that circular pattern. You put with a square, if you put the 4 corner lines in, it's easy to divide this into equally spaced sections, and then depending on the size of the section you can do what you like with. I'm going to pop some little triangle shapes at the end. This actually reminds me of a drawing I did, a very small section of I think an ammonite fossil or a shell of some kind going back, and you get these kinds of patterns around that central area, and it's more interesting with this if, like the circle, you offset it. And split these sections again. I'm just going to halve them because I feel I'd need a bigger shape, and so if I pop these shapes in, you get that different kind of feel. And again, that would be the case with doing the diva dance, but with an offset circle. So if we offset that and just draw the first line in, it doesn't matter which line you start with. Particularly, I think that it would make a difference with the end product, but the end pattern or fragment. But to start it off, you just pick a place and start. I am going to pop that in there, pop one in there, and I think I'll pop one down there. And yeah, I am going to get things that go off. This one I'm just filling it in after I've done it with that one. I've got to do it on first. You can see how this is the one that will awe around. Now I could have chosen that once I got round the corner to leave this empty, which I think would make some kind of sense, to be honest. There we go. So we've done that one. So just by putting that in a different position, we get something a bit different. Now something flashed into my head, an idea here. Oh yeah, do it in a let's use a seed shape. And just split this up, and then what I thought could be quite, I thought it could be quite interesting, I'm not entirely sure it will be now. Split these up again. Is instead of diva dance, is to do crescent moon. What I think I'd do here is I think I may want to do them in alternate sections, because close together I think you might lose them one in another. I'll have a look and see. Because again, there's nothing that says you have to do them in every single section. So that's quite interesting. I like that. Let's try it again. This time let me split these sections into threes, so we've got slightly bigger areas, and then try, instead of filling them up with a complete kind of crescent moon, is just with the central area and one aura, because that will work interestingly. That's quite nice, and that helps with that kind of feel of rotation, of flow, of movement, I think. God, I'm beginning to sound like a proper artist there. So this will work in any kind of shape you think of. Latest reticulum is Pangea, isn't it? And of course this will work beautifully in there. In fact, isn't this part of, is this part of how you draw mirth? But without the sticky outy bits. Actually haven't drawn either of them yet. So that would work quite nicely, and again we could pop here, and of course, depending on which side of the outside curve or the inside curve you put these, I put these on the inside curve, so that side. So let's have a look at popping them on this side. So again, that adds some interest. Movements. Actually, that's quite fun. And just bring it back there. So there we are. So that's got a different feel to this one. If I draw this one beside it, compare and contrast, it's the easiest thing to do. I like that one. Let's see how this is if I... Now these I put on the inside of the curve, if that makes sense. I'm going to pop these on the other side here and see what happens. It's the same, but it does feel quite different. It's the way these are tucked under, I suppose. It does feel quite different. So there we are, there's a whole host of these. I have got spaces to fill, so no doubt we put it on its side because you'll get to see it all then. No doubt I'll take an image of that when I finished it, as far as, you know, for social media and so on. But this one has lent itself to me filling the pattern, not just with these radiating lines, but with using those radiating lines with patterns that, like Diva Dance, that worked in this way. Tabs would work. You know, Thomas Padris's tabs from the Inktober Tangle Pattern Challenge. Those would work as well. But that's kind of this one, isn't it? That's kind of tabs with a difference. So that would work nicely. So anything that's sort of like a linear pattern would, or anything you can put along a line would. But you've got to think ahead and think, I want to leave some space here because I want to put something in there. You know, dense lines are fun. Changing the density of lines is quite fun as well. Changing the shape in the middle, it just changes the shape in the middle. Ultimately, I think there is a slight difference in the way the lines radiate out because you have them coming from the points, and that gives a bit more structure to them in some way. So if you compare this to this, it's the same, but it just feels that little bit different. It's almost like this one is appearing from underneath here. It's almost like you've got layers, and that you can bring out with shadow and highlights. Let me give it a bit of a go. I've got a tortillon here. I'm looking for a darkish coloured pencil. I've got here, hopefully. Oh, anyone will do, Angela. Don't be so fussy. So there you go. Anyone will do, Angela. Don't be so fussy. So with this, if I put some shadow here and some shadow here and some shadow here, then I think that will just help to bring out, oh, the ends are dirty, so I'm going to get some mixing of colours, but it'll be fine. First time I've used pastels with this ink, and I'm hoping it's dried enough to be stable on here. And I'm thinking that my problems with ink flow is more to do with the fact I've got distress ink on them. So by doing this where the lines come from, putting that darker point there, it brings out that curling structure. How I think you can see what I mean. It helps to sort them out into some section. Let's have a look at this, because I'm sure I can do that here as well. Okay, let's have a quick look. And perhaps not so obvious with a square, but you can see there are some areas where they do overlap. So this shadow and highlight is really what helps to make this pattern, I think. So I will pop some shadow around there, and I'll also pop some around the outside edge. And again, I just want to keep it fairly, I say again a lot when I don't mean again. It's like the ums and ahs, isn't it? Again. There we are. I don't want to spread the chalk pastel or the colour out too far. I want to leave that highlight there. Even though it's not in white, it's a distinct highlight. And this one, I think I'm going to stroke it out a bit further. But keep it quite dense around that central bit. I think perhaps I've not left enough there. That's fine. Okay, this one, this Diva Dance here, I am going to pop shadow along here, just a little bit there. Pop some around the edge, but I wanted to bring out this overlap an awful lot, make this really dark here, and perhaps I shouldn't have put shadow on the other side of it, but that then will help to have that feeling that this is curling on top of what is inside. And I think with this, I was going to finish, you do realise this one, I think what I would do here is start with this line and then draw my shape in like this, and then do the Diva Dance starting with this one here. And that little bit sticking out will help with that illusion of something of it overlapping that kind of way. And I won't draw this all in, but I think you get the idea. So again, sort of like I'm looking at the patterns. I say again, why did I say again? I'm looking at the patterns, and as I see things, I think, now, what if I did this? Or that would make sense. If I extended it a little bit, it would help to feel that something is going underneath, as would a nice and simple, perhaps a simple aura line there, just to separate the pattern. And that would help with these ones as well, is that very first line that I put in. Before I start doing Diva Dance, if I aura that and keep that area blank, it gives me that separation between this part and this part, as it were, the start and the end. And that really helps. So shadow and highlight I do this one as well, because I can see where my original line is here. And yeah, I'm using purple because it was the first dark colour that came to hand. But really, it doesn't matter what colour you use. I will just bring that around there a little bit. But by giving that, leaving this uncoloured, you get that darkness that's there, that shadow. It's not so easy for me to see actually on the paper, but when I look at the screen, I can go, oh yeah, I can see that now. It's always my worry, always my problem. With these, again, it would be popping shadows underneath these lines. So if I just do a couple of them, hopefully you'll see the difference. And if you want that line there to be very visible, white gel pen, that would work. Do I have one handy? Most probably not. I'll have a quick look, because I haven't used a gel pen with this ink. Yep, I've got a jelly roll here. It's an 05, which will be fine. Or I could go, oh, let's go exotic. I've got a gold one here. Hopefully this is a gold one that works, because I've got a gold pen here that doesn't work well. This one kind of works. I think this is the one that is playing up, but you get the idea. And the same with others, is that you can go in and add that kind of highlight afterwards. So up here, I much prefer dotty highlights than highlights that are solid lines. I find it adds an interesting texture to the highlight as well. And I much prefer using a gel pen than a white chalk pastel, I do have to say that. Although I do vary from time to time. So there we are. So just a couple that have had some shadow and a bit of highlight that you can't really see because it's so subtle. But that gold would really lift those out, as would white. So you know, yeah, I'm not going to do it. Work that one out for yourselves. So I've got some space left to fill in, and I shall think about that and come back and fill them in. So I'll show you those results tomorrow. The rest of the day after I've done this, I've got the video uploading and everything. It's Template Thursday for the Angela Porter's Colouring Book Fan Facebook group. And so I need to get the template partially coloured. I did do a partial colour of it yesterday with watercolour pencils. I really need to leave alone and just do digital. But I have to try these things out. If you don't try, you never learn. And I keep trying and I'm not learning. So there we are. So I'm going to say thank you for joining me. Thank you to all my new subscribers. Thank you for my old subscribers. Thank you to those who've liked my video, who've shared them with others that may find them useful. And look after yourselves, keep warm, keep safe, and find time to be creative each and every day. So I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now. Bye.